We're going to teach you about the carpometacarpal joint of your thumb. I'm Ashley.
I'm Anna.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Jessica.
So the carpometacarpal joint is the articulation between the proximal end of the first metacarpal right here and the trapezium, which is one of the carpal bones. It's a saddle joint, which means that it has 2 degrees of freedom, so it can do flexion and extension, and abduction and adduction, and it can also perform a small amount of rotation and opposition. The main ligament supporting this joint is the anterior oblique ligament, which is also called the beak ligament, and this ligament provides most of the stability for the CMC joint. It resists dorsoradial and volar subluxation.
Fun fact, pollicis is a Latin word for thumb.
CMC joint of your thumb is very important in a lot of the daily activities that you do. It helps you with a lot of fine motor skills, and it also helps you with your pinching ability. So without your thumb, you would have a really hard time trying to do simple things like just pick up something small off of a counter, or trying to hold a pencil would become very difficult. But it does undergo a lot of functional stresses, and that may cause or contribute to some osteoarthritis in the CMC joint. This stress is due to rotation of the first metacarpal when performing opposition. So when you're performing opposition, there's less surface area to transmit forces onto this joint, and that can potentially cause changes in the first metacarpal and in the articular surface of the trapezium.
Fun fact, swiping right can lead to arthritis.
So the unique saddle shape of the trapezium and the thumb metacarpal joint allows it to be both convex and concave with different planes of motion. So for flexion and extension, the concave surface of the thumb metacarpal moves across the fixed convex surface of the trapezium. So rolling and sliding motions occur in the same direction. For abduction and adduction, the convex surface of the thumb metacarpal moves on the fixed concave surface of the trapezium. So in this case, the rolling and sliding motions occur in opposite directions. For CMC rotation, so in opposition, which is when your thumb and your pinky come together, the thumb metacarpal abducts, flexes, then medially rotates. So the shallow groove in the trapezium allows and guides the slight medial rotation of the metacarpal.
Fun fact, hitchhiker's thumb is also known as distal hyperextensibility. That's worth 38 points in Scrabble, and that doesn't even include bonus tiles.
So now we're going to talk about the muscles that act on your first carpal metacarpal joint. We're going to separate them into 2 different groups because there are a lot of muscles that act on your thumb, which is good because we do a lot of fine motor movements, so we want a lot of different movements for our thumb. So the intrinsic muscle group is going to be on your thenar or within your thenar eminence, which is on the palmar side of your thumb. You're going to have your abductor pollicis brevis, your abductor pollicis, your first dorsal interosseous, and your opponens pollicis. And then in the second group, your extrinsic muscles, you're going to have your abductor pollicis longus, your extensor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis, and your flexor pollicis longus. And now we're going to look at an anatomical diagram picturing those different muscles in your hand. Okay, so now we have a palmar side of a left hand, and as you can see, this right here is going to be your thenar eminence, and we have our opponens pollicis on this lateral side. You have your abductor pollicis in the middle, and your flexor pollicis brevis on the more medial side of your thenar eminence. And then if we look on the dorsal side of a right hand, you can see these tendons approaching on this lateral side. That's going to be your extensor pollicis longus and your extensor pollicis brevis. And your dorsal interosseous is going to be right in between this right here.
So now let's look at some normal range of motions for the CMC joint of the thumb. So abduction of the CMC has a normal range from 0 to 70 degrees. Flexion of the thumb has a normal range of 0 to 15 degrees. Extension of the thumb has a range of 0 to 20 degrees. And lastly, opposition of the thumb measures from the crease of the thenar eminence to the crease of the PIP joint of the phalange. And it should have a measurement of 0 centimeters, but that's a lot harder to get to than it sounds.
Thanks for watching.